Hi, my name is Yenik from Just One More Story Farm, and today we're going to be answering the question of what are the basic tools that you need to keep your fruit trees healthy and free from disease and pests. So behind me I have a bunch of items that I personally use with my fruit trees, and I'm going to go through each one of them with you today. A quick rundown of what there is behind me is diatomaceous earth, horticultural oil, copper fungicide, nylon pantyhose, a bucket of soapy water, a spray bottle, isopropyl alcohol, pruning shears, scissors, a fruit tree care guide, tape, and a bucket. So now let's get into how to use these items for your fruit tree care. The items that I use to protect these beautiful fruit trees, like this beautiful fruiting Macintosh apple tree, are things that will protect them from insects and diseases. So this top tier here, we're talking about diatomaceous earth. This is an organic product that you can use to kill things like ants and Japanese beetles. Those are the two insects that I struggle with here in Massachusetts. The ants like to climb up the trunk of the tree, so I like to put diatomaceous earth in a ring around the base of the tree so that the ants have to actually go through this, and this will get into their exoskeleton, dry it out, and actually kill them. So I want this at the base of the tree. I will take diatomaceous earth, I will place it inside of a nylon stocking, and I will poof it onto the affected leaves if I am seeing ants or Japanese beetles on a particular fruit tree. So this can work great if you are actually seeing those insects. This stuff will wash off in the rain if it gets wet, so it's something that does need to be reapplied as needed, especially if you have some rainy weather or if you're hosing your trees or if you have a sprinkler going near your trees. Horticultural oil. This is something I use in early spring when the trees are still dormant, because this is going to protect them against aphids, mites, scales, whiteflies, and other soft-bodied insects. And so by spraying this early, you can protect the tree from these insects and their eggs that could potentially be laid on your fruit tree. The nice thing about this is it comes with a little booklet on the back that tells you exactly when to spray it, how much to spray it, depending on the type of tree. So it is all in different categories based on pear trees, peach trees, apple trees, whatever you're growing. This covers a whole bunch of different plants, and it's organic as well, which is important to me. I like to use organic products because these fruits are things that I'm going to be eating, my family's going to be eating, so I want it to be as safe as possible. Another organic product that I use is copper fungicide. This is something that I also use in the early spring when I am pruning my trees. So when I make a cut with pruning shears on my trees, this is something that I like to spray on my tree after I make those cuts to protect them from funguses that can develop. So diseases that this can help protect from are black spot, powdery mildew, downy mildew, and early blight. I apply these two products using a large pump spray bottle that is used specifically for fruit trees, but you can also use a regular spray bottle, especially if you only have a small amount of trees, and the dilution concentrations will all be listed on each product depending on the type of tree you're spraying, and so you can dilute that with water and spray away. I do recommend spraying in the evening though, especially with the horticultural oil, because it is an oil and you don't want to cause any issues with the hot oil on your plant. So I like to do it in the evening, and it's best not to do it when the weather's over 80 degrees. Now we talked about pruning. Pruning is a big part of taking care of your fruit trees. I like to prune in the early spring. I use my pruning shears to do so. One important thing to note with pruning shears is that you should be disinfecting them between trees and before use. So when I pull these out of the garage and I go to use them, I disinfect them with isopropyl alcohol. I put that in a little spray bottle and give it a little spritz all around it to disinfect. And then I will take care of one tree, and after that tree I will do the same disinfecting process and then move on to the next tree. That's really important to avoid spreading diseases from one tree to the other and killing any bacteria that's on your fruity shoes. It's also really nice to have a book to reference about fruit tree care. I really like the Fruit Gardener's Bible. I reach for this often. This is something that anytime I see an issue with my plants, I am searching through, looking through the pictures specific to if I had a problem with the peach tree, I would look in the peach tree section and look at the common issues that they talk about, because not only do they tell you what the problem is, but also a solution. And so that can be really helpful. And also, it's a complete guide. So it's got basic care, more advanced care. It's got a lot of information in here that is really nice to have right at your fingertips, available, quick to look at. I have a couple different tapes here. So as I was saying, ants are a big problem here in Massachusetts with my fruit trees. So I want to be able to keep the ants from climbing up the trunk of my tree. In order to do that, I'm going to be wrapping the trunk of my trees with tape. You can use heavy-duty shipping tape, you could use masking tape, you could use a waterproof tape, lots of different options. What your purpose for this is to wrap the trunk of the tree with a small amount of tape that has a sticky side on the outside, so the ants will get either stuck on the sticky tape or they won't even be able to get over the tape. So use what you have on hand and put some on your tree trunks. Just remember that you need to check it to make sure that your fruit trees that are growing are not getting girdled by these tapes. So you don't want to put it too tight, just enough to be able to hold that in place, and check it frequently. I'll only have this on during the growing season. Once my fruits have been harvested, I'll be removing this. So I personally love to water my fruit trees with buckets. So I'll run my hose to the middle of the yard, I'll fill up my 2-gallon bucket, and I will water each of my new fruit trees with 2 gallons of water. Every day to 3 times a week, really depending on how hot it is and how much rain we get. So I adjust that based on the weather. When I water my trees, I don't place the water directly on the base of the trunk. I like to do a circle around the perimeter of the tree, so that way the roots have to reach for the water along the outside, and you're not taking the risk of having water sitting directly on the trunk. That can cause the base of the tree to rot, and we don't want that. So I will be battling the ants and the Japanese beetles this summer, and I'm going to be using all these different tricks that I have. But if that's not enough, I do have a backup plan, which will be to cover my fruit trees with an insect barrier, bird netting barrier, to actually physically keep the bugs off of the trees. I have not had squirrels and birds take any of my fruit, thankfully, but it's only a matter of time before they figure out that I'm growing fruit here and they start snacking. So that'll also be the time when I will need some coverage for my fruit trees. Another great use for these nylon stockings is you can put one of these around your fruit and tie it off, so that way the insects, birds, squirrels, they can't access your fruit. If you only have a few fruiting in the early days, you can use this to cover up each individual fruit, and that can help save those fruits from being eaten before you get a chance to harvest them. So that's all the tips and tricks and tools and items that I have to show you today. But if you have any questions, or if there's something I missed, or if you have any recommendations, definitely leave them in the comments below and I'll answer back. And as a community, we can help each other out with our fruit trees. If you haven't gotten your fruit trees yet and got them planted, what are you waiting for? Get your farm on.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're learning to like me. There is so much more to see. If you're planning on heading elsewhere, Bangor-Uwe, yeah, yeah, yeah. This really is the place to be. What are you waiting for? Get your farm